Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Telivy MSP podcast. Very excited to introduce our guest here today. Jennifer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Jennifer Bleam. I go by the Cybersecurity Sherpa. That is my nickname. And I help MSPs really take their cybersecurity to market, help them with their marketing strategy, and then ultimately their sales process to help them close more cybersecurity revenue.
Wow, and we're very excited to dive into each of those things that you do for MSPs as well. And for folks in our community who don't know everybody, I'm Jeremy from Telivy. We're an automated cybersecurity risk assessment platform for over 100 MSPs. MSPs like Hall Data Solutions, Trident Networks, and Level 5 Management use Telivy to close deals. With risk assessments gain 3x in revenue, new clients convert website traffic to sales calls with a homepage risk assessment widget, and reduce risk assessments that take 7 to 8 days manually to under 5 hours, fully automated with Telivy. So let's dive into MSP Sales Revolution. Jennifer, could you tell us a little bit more about that, who you work with, and the problems that you solve for MSPs?
Yeah, so I typically work directly with the owner. Sometimes it's the head of marketing and sales, but most of my clients don't have a sales and marketing person in their company. So it's usually the owner and the MSPs that I'm working with, MSPs and MSSPs that are around $1 million in revenue, maybe just a little under a million, up to about 5 million in revenue. So they've seen some level of success. But the thing that I hear over and over again is that they are looking for a system for their marketing, a framework for their sales. And as we dive into that a little bit more, what I hear a lot is, okay, I'm once I close a sale, which usually comes from a referral, then I'm great at holding on to them. My service delivery is great. My customer service is pretty solid. I don't usually lose a client unless it's a fluke, or maybe they're acquired, or maybe they retire or close their doors. But holding on to clients is generally not the challenge. It's getting what I call net new logos or additional net new business into the company. And most of my clients are very systems oriented and framework oriented with every other area of their business, except when it comes to business development, sales, and marketing. And so that's what they're looking for, is a system or an equation. Some people will say kind of that's the unknown. And so we're solving for the unknown in their business.
Interesting. I'm curious to learn what the sort of end-to-end journey looks like for the MSP who works with you all. What's sort of the initial problem that they come to you with? You mentioned an example. Oh, I have referrals, but I'm hoping to put together a process, right, or to grow and scale. And I'm curious what you all help them with, the programs that are available. Yeah, and what the sort of long-term impact might be.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the program, then we talk about the impact. The program is really based around a 9-step, I call this the MSP growth roadmap. It is the 9 steps that I take every single client through. Now, some of them have already done a few of these steps. We do something similar to like the vivid vision idea. We also talk about an accountability chart, which some MSPs have already done. Some MSPs have never heard of that before. Some have heard of it, but never actually put one in place for their own organization. And so that's not the first thing that we do, but it is a fundamental piece of the puzzle that if you don't have it, it's hard to drive forward. It's kind of like if you don't know where you're going, then any path will get you there. And so it's important to know, where am I today, and have kind of an accountability chart for that. But then also, where am I going in the next 3 years, maybe 5 years? 10 is a little impossible to anticipate today, but like knowing where you want to be in 3 years from a staffing perspective allows you to spot some challenges in today's staffing. So for example, I was working with a larger MSSP, and they said, wow, if we want to 10x in the next, I think theirs was a 10x goal in 3 to 5 years. And he said, what is it going to look like? And so he could do the math, because it's very easy to say, okay, if one technician can support, 400 or 600 endpoints, whatever your metrics are, depending on automation and tools and what you outsource and things like that. The tech side is very easy to figure out. Okay, if I'm 10xing my revenue, and if we anticipate a little bit of a growth every single year in terms of what we're charging per seat or what have you, that's an easy math problem. So okay, where do I want to be in 3 to 5 years from a tech side? Easy. But then he said, what I'm seeing that if I want to add that number of clients or that many endpoints, I'm going to need more sales and marketing people. And so we backed into what does that look like on the sales and marketing side? And we were actually, it was an in-person meeting, and he said, whoa, like if that's where I want to be in 3 to 5 years. And right now I have me, myself, and I doing all of the marketing and all of the sales. He could see where the growth needed to come from. And then it was kind of fun because he said, okay, that's kind of a lot. However, I can see if I add those people, then I add the endpoints, and now I get to my 10x goal. And all of a sudden the light bulb came on, and we had a workable plan, a workable system. Now, there is the saying that, man makes a plan and God laughs. And so of course the plan will never be perfect, exactly like we sketched it out. But again, it at least acted as an end goal, like that. His goal was 10xing. And I want to back up because that is one thing that we do spend time inside of my program, which is, what is your goal? There's a lot of coaches that take the goal that they believe you should have for your business, and they superimpose their goal on you. And I don't do that. If you want a lifestyle business that pays you $350,000 a year from the bottom line, that's great. And if you want a 5-state conglomerate that's, worth 10, 20, $30 million, and you want to sell it at some point and retire or chase passion projects or buy an island in the Caribbean, like that's fine as well. But what I don't want is for you to not know your heart. And so when we figure out what is it that lights you up, what are we truly chasing after, then we can build the marketing and sales strategy to get you there. Otherwise, you spend a whole lot of years chasing somebody else's dream because they told you that was the correct answer to the problem.
I'm curious that you put an emphasis on that. Do you have a story relating to that where maybe that exemplified falling into this pitfall?
Yeah, it's so funny. I was actually sharing it with a sales coach friend of mine this weekend, and this is not like the kind of testimonial that you would ever want to put on your website. But I worked with this MSSP for about 6 months. We perfected his solution stack, and we made sure his margins were great. And I actually worked with him privately, one-on-one. And at the end of the 6 months, we were having the conversation like, where do we go from here? What's our next engagement look like? Did you get enough from Jennifer's head that you're able to go out and execute on your own now? And so we're just having a very candid conversation. And he said, I got to be honest, I don't think I want to own my business anymore. And I said, oh, well, tell me about that. And he said, well, as we were thinking about like where I want to be in 3 years and where I want to be in 5 years and the changes in the industry and the risk to my company and the cyber liability challenges, he said, I think at the time he was 55 or something. He said, I don't want that. Like, I don't want all of that increased risk and complexity. And he said, I know I shouldn't want business as usual, but I kind of want business as usual. And I know I can't do that. I can't deliver the same old services and do right by my clients. So he said, I think what I need to do is in the next 18 months, grow my company to the point where I can sell it and be done. And that isn't the kind of headline that's going to get me like new clients. I'm going to show you why you need to fall out of love with your business. But that's the kind of outcome that I love because it allows my clients to really get in touch with what they're looking for and to make sure that they don't spend their lives building a business that they hate. And so that's a story that is why we now focus on that inside of one of the first handful, a month, 3 to 4 weeks is, what do you want? What are you building? And that may change over time. If you started your business when you were 25 and single and no children, and now you're 40 and your kids are getting older and you've got a spouse and you can't pull 24-hour workdays like you used to, like it can change, and that's okay. Like nobody said that you're married to your original vision of your business. And so that's why I put such a heavy emphasis on it. Again, I think part of it is that story, but part of it is also that I'm working with founders and they are working a lot of hours. They're very busy, and they don't always take the time to step back and be introspective. They just execute very, very quickly, usually. and they never take the time, or they rarely take the time to say, is this the direction that I really want to go? Instead, it's, I'm heading in that direction 1,000,000 miles an hour, whether it's the right direction or not. And so I want to make sure before we go 1,000,000 miles an hour, which we do, we execute very quickly. I want to make sure that we are heading in the direction that's going to fuel their dreams and light them up.
I think that's extremely wise. It's crazy. I have an experience as a founder myself. In year 6 and 7 was when I started going, why am I not happy? Or why, and starting to have to figure out, the introspection myself and figured a lot out. It was
Yes.
extremely useful. It's funny because it's kind of a paradox. Almost instinctively we're afraid to face it or afraid to think about it because, oh, what if I decide to quit? That'd be the end of the
Yes.
world, right? Like, what do I do? I can't do that. So we just sort of avoid thinking about it. I really love that part of your process. You identify the goals because at least what happened with me, and sounds like from your story, things worked out. That was a
Yes.
success, right? The person sold the company, or my company, we pivoted. So I think that's sort of what has had to happen, and delaying it only, you're just knocking on the same door rather than trying something new. I'm curious, I'd love to learn, you mentioned the 9-step process. Could you go over them one more time? I'd love to learn a little bit more about the process that
Yeah,
you
for
teach MSP
sure.
owners. Yeah.
Before I do that, I want to piggyback on what you just said a minute ago, because the core of what you said is twofold. Number one, learning to trust yourself and saying, okay, if I pivot, I'll figure it out. Like I've always figured it out before. Like I'm still alive and nothing's ever killed me. I'm resilient. I'm gonna figure this out. So kind of standing in your own greatness. And then the second thing is really a mindset shift that life happens for you. Like it doesn't happen to you. And so you were hinting at that concept as well, that okay, I've learned lessons in the past. I'm going to figure this out. I'm resilient, and all of the lessons and the life choices and everything has brought me to this point, at this point, and it's going to be okay. I think that's the phrase that you used. It's going to be okay. Because
Yep.
as we look back, like everything works out, everything is for a reason. If it was something bad, we learned a really valuable lesson from it. If it was something good, we were able to celebrate. And it's the good things that allow us to point to the bad things and say, okay, like we need that dichotomy in our lives. So, if everything was white, it'd be boring. If everything was black, it would be boring. We need the black and white. We need the two extremes. So I love what you said, the resilience mindset. So okay, so let's go through the 9 steps very, very quickly. So the first step is fundamentals. I always tell my clients there's probably nothing in here that is going to come as a surprise. Like, oh, I should have a target market. I've never heard that concept before. But inside of those fundamentals are actual, I call them homework assignments. I have a background in teaching, and actual homework assignments where what I'm finding clients doing is they're pulling dusty documents from their servers where they're like, oh, I kind of finished this document because I worked with a coach, or I watched a video, or a friend told me I needed to do it, or I created this for my business plan so I could get my first business loan, but I never did anything with the document. And so those fundamentals are things like, who's your target market? Who are you serving? What's your unique value proposition? Again, fundamentals, nothing super surprising there, but the rare MSP is the one that's actually finished the exercises and applied
Yeah.
them to his business. And so those are the fundamentals. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes we have to wrestle with them.
I,
Then we
I,
shift. Yeah, go ahead.
Before
Yeah.
we move on, I wanted to ask you because you called this a fundamental target market. I've
Yes.
talked to several MSPs. I don't know if everybody has a target market. I hear MSPs say, "Oh, everybody, right? We work with everybody. Anybody and everybody can be our customer. We don't have a target. Everybody's our target." I'm curious what you mean by a target market.
Yeah. So everybody is not a target market. So I want it to be defined. And so you could say, niche specific, right? Like I target attorneys, or I target attorneys who use Macs, or I target chiropractors who use this EHR solution. Like that's a niche specific target. I don't love that approach, and mainly it's because of COVID. I saw many MSPs go out of business because they had niched to,
Mhm.
let's say, hospitality, and we all know that the travel and hospitality industry shriveled up, and
Yeah.
maybe it didn't quite die, but it had some challenges during COVID. And so, if I had been an MSP that had niched to hospitality, my business would have dried up overnight through something that I couldn't control. And so that makes me very uneasy. I also, when I was helping my husband with his MSP, we niched to oral surgeons, and we had really capitalized on the oral surgeon market. We knew their X-ray machine. It was like a digital X-ray
Mhm.
machine. We knew that inside and out. We knew their CRM or EHR inside and out. And then the biggest EHR company started bundling managed services with their software for something ridiculous like $12 per user per month, or like something we couldn't, like our tools cost more than that. And it was a loss leader to get all of those oral surgeons to switch to their solution. So it was brilliant on their part, but we couldn't compete with that. And so overnight, like 30 or 40% of our revenue dried up, or not
Wow.
overnight, over the course of, 4 to 6 months, because they were saying, why should we pay you, 2,500 a month, 3,500 a month, when we can go to this other organization and pay 312? Well, like, I don't care what sales system you have. Like that's almost it's, I don't know how you would possibly win that argument. So
Mhm.
I'm pretty opposed to niches. Some of my clients do have niches. I don't make them change. But typically my clients are saying, I want to work with a small business that has between 20 and 50 machines. And then
Mm.
we say, but not banking and not retail and not, there's a few exclusions that you can put in place. And what you're really doing is you're building kind of an avatar. You're building an image in your head of what an ideal client would look like, so that then you can look at your marketplace and say, are there enough of those ideal clients to build the business of my dreams? So now we go back to that visioning exercise that I mentioned, because I was brought in very early in my consulting career. I actually had another marketing company hired me for a couple of hours, and they said, we're working with an MSP in this geography. He's serving this niche, and we are just having horrible results. Can we
Okay.
hire you? Because there's something we're missing. And so we did a really deep dive for like 2 hours. And excuse me, the bottom line was there weren't enough possible clients in the area. They just weren't there. And so that's a crucial mistake to make if there's not enough people to fuel your dreams.
Mm. Wow. Thank you for walking through that together and delineating the difference between niche and also, hey, here's the target, small businesses, excluding a couple industries. Um, I think that makes a lot of sense. And also working back and verifying that you have enough market to
Yes,
target that market
correct.
before you go and execute and pivoting while you're still early.
Yes.
Um,
And that's
I'm
hard. That's hard for
very
MSPs to pivot, because they are very structured and very formatted, and that serves them well. But in marketing and sales, it has to be a little more fluid. There's a little more art than science
Mhm.
to marketing, and that's part of why marketing is so challenging for MSPs, because they want the science. They want the, if I pull this lever, then what comes
Yep.
out the other end is a client. And it
Yep.
doesn't work that way. I mean, there are certainly systems you can put in place. There's things you can do to optimize that whole process, but it isn't as easy as A plus B equals C. And like we all wish it was.
That's something I had to learn as well. But I'm curious, and sorry for interrupting,
No, you're
the
fine.
other steps as well. I'm dying to learn more.
Yep. So number two is packaging and pricing. So what are we selling? What's the value to the end user? How do you articulate that in your messaging? And then can we please make sure it's highly profitable when we're going to market? Because otherwise we're getting ready to, when we get to steps 4, 5, 6, we're getting ready to start with lead generation and closing new business. And if
Hmm.
we're closing unprofitable business, that is not going to help anybody. And so
Wow.
that's why it's step 2. And then step 3 is all about designing the dream. And so,
Sorry, I
yeah,
have to interrupt you again.
that's right.
How do you determine how much it's worth to that client? To then
Yeah,
determine your pricing, to then determine, is this going to be a profitable business?
yeah, we actually do it the other way around. So we
Oh,
determine the profitability. So that determines what we're going to sell it for. And then we make sure we have a sales system in place to sell it at that price. So, so we do set the pricing first, and then we make sure we know how to articulate the value that justifies that price.
oh, oh, that's interesting. The last thing you said, adjusting the value to match the price. Um, because I think before you said that, I would have said, oh, what if competitors have a certain price or somebody's asking for a certain price? Somebody doesn't have budget, right? A lot of people, in sales calls say that. Um, but it sounds like what you're saying is you have a price that you set to make your business viable, and you add enough value, services, and yeah, things like that, to a point where you think it'll meet it, and someone will pay you that much for it. Um,
Correct. Because
Interesting.
there's a difference between I don't have the money
Uh-huh.
and I don't really think it's worth what you're charging. You can't
Right.
solve the first one. If they do not have, the $2,000 a month or the $4,000 a month, you can't fix that. Now, there are ways around that. You can say, okay, but do you have a cybersecurity budget? Do you have a training budget? Like there's potentially
Excellent.
ways to squeeze a little more budget out, but if they genuinely don't have the money, that is not an objection that you can overcome or diffuse.
Uh-huh.
However, if they don't see the value, which is probably true in a cold call, of course, they're not going to say, sure, I'd love to spend $4,000 with you. Please come out and sell me. Sometimes I hear that my prospects are too cheap, when in reality, it was just a poorly conducted sales call. And so
Mhm.
there's a thin line there between, well, were they really cheap, or did you do not so good of a job selling the value of your services? And it can be difficult for someone from the outside to determine that. So inside of my program, we do call recordings and we do debriefs after sales calls to identify what could have gone better. How do we fix this moving forward? Because everyone is
Mhm.
not a prospect. So
Right.
we determine the pricing, and then we learn how to sell it for that price to the right prospects.
I'm learning so much. Apologies for interrupting
No, you're
again.
fine.
Please continue. You mentioned the third one. We're on number 3 now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the third one is building the dream. So we kind of talked about that already, a little bit of the concept of what are we building? Why are we building that? Once we've built that, what does that do for me personally as a CEO? What does that do for my team? What does that do for my community? Some people are very external focused. They want to build a business that drives this amount of profit so they can serve the community around them, whether that's the homeless or charitable contributions or what have you. Or it can be, I'd like to build my business to this size so that I can build a large home and have it custom designed and bring in a designer. And again, there's no right or wrong answers. I'm
Mhm.
not going to say you must build your business so that you can give back to charity. I'm also not going to say you must build your business so you can, build your wife her dream kitchen. Like both of those are admirable. There's nothing wrong with either one of those, but you need to know what lights you up at night, because it's that, start with why, the Simon
Mhm.
Sinek, know your why. That's what's going to drive you on the days that you don't feel like doing business. Like when you're like, the alarm goes off, and certainly there's days that the alarm goes off and you bound out of bed and you're excited to get at it. But there are going to be days where you're
Yep.
like, oh, it's raining, it's dark, I didn't sleep well, the
Yeah.
dog's barking. My big thing is in the winter, I've got this really heavy down comforter, and it is
Yeah.
really mentally challenging to throw the covers back and be like,
I know
ah,
what
and
you
it's
mean.
cold, I'm awake now. And so It's the why. Like, why are you growing this business? Why are you going to force yourself to get out from underneath the down comforter? And you have to know that because of those ups and downs. And it's in those down moments that you really need to remember, why am I doing this? Why am I killing myself? Why am I working so hard? Why am I dealing with the team member challenges and the client issues? And so knowing that why is important. That's step 3.
That's resonating with me so hard just because today was one of those why moments.
Yes.
What got me out was the podcast, was
Yes.
not only, oh, I have to do it or it's accountability or responsibility, but this is again talking about myself now, but right now I'm learning so much. I'm learning so much for myself, for the teams that I work with, for just personally, right? Like, oh, life goals and asking those questions, introspecting. And I love that. I absolutely love it. I love that opportunity to learn and grow and think. And but so yeah, so thank you. Please continue.
Yeah. So I'm going to bundle kind of 4, 5, and 6
Yeah,
into one piece.
please
So
do.
4, 5, and 6 is all about growing your list and nurturing your list and making those offers, making the marketing offers so that they turn into leads. And
Uh-huh.
so I call it list building and then lead generation, list management. All of that is kind of step 4, 5, and 6. And that's really where the system starts to produce, and you're seeing that flywheel starting to move. And sometimes they are revenue victories, sometimes they are lead generation victories. Sometimes, especially at the beginning, like in the first 60 to 90 days, they're opportunity victories. And what I mean is that when the MSPs start to remember, why did I start this business? And they start to see, what is it going to look like in 3 years or 5 years? That fire is reinvigorated. Like, it never went out. It was just kind of an
Mm.
ember. And by working on these things, and visioning and seeing your future self, hope is reborn. I mean, that I don't know how else, that maybe sounds cheesy, but I don't know how else to articulate it. And so then what
With
happens is
purpose.
they have a
Purpose.
purpose, they have
Yeah.
a drive, and they
I
want to
know what
get
you mean.
there, and they're excited. And then they start to see the opportunities. Oh, look, there's a seminar that I could go and speak to. Oh, look, there's this organization that needs training people. I could do that. Oh, look, there's a baseball league that needs somebody to sponsor the jerseys. Like, I'm not saying that any of those are the right answer, or that it's the
Mhm.
only thing you need to do for your company, but all of a sudden, whereas a month or 2 ago, it was like, I don't know, there's no opportunities. I think maybe I need to switch niches. Maybe I need to sell something different. Maybe I need to change my offering. Maybe I need to buy a new website, like all those things. And the opportunities were right there. It's the old acres of diamonds, right? Like, if you shift the way you're looking, you will find opportunities. There's relationships out there. There are people looking for speakers. There are people looking for training opportunities. There are people looking for what you have. But if you aren't looking for them, you'll never connect. And whether you call that law of attraction, which I don't love, I think it's really just the reticular activating system. It's us telling our brain, hey, opportunities are now important to me. 3 or 4 months ago, I wasn't really looking for them, but now I'm looking for those opportunities. And now it's not that you've created them necessarily, it's that your brain now realizes, oh, Jennifer's looking for opportunities. There's an opportunity. Let me show it to her. Let me feed it to her instead of filtering it out. And so it's very, very fun when my clients start to message me. We have a Slack channel, and they'll message me and say, I just found another opportunity. I'm so excited. And so they'll go out, and it'll be a coffee meeting, or it'll be a opportunity to speak before a BNI, or the chamber will reach out and say, hey, someone just canceled their booth at the trade show. We'll let you in for half of the normal cost. And they're like, I'm in. I'll figure it out, in the next 2 weeks, but I'm in. And so that's fun. And those are not revenue victories necessarily, but it starts to help shift the mindset, that there is abundance, there is opportunity out there. There are people out there who want what you have, and it starts the flywheel spinning. So those are very, very fun Slack messages to get.
Absolutely. I think there's definitely when you're building momentum, it sort of grows and you sort of get into that flow,
Yes.
of thinking like that and seeing opportunities out there. This might be completely unrelated, but I also find as a founder, taking a break, taking a step back, if you're stuck, I get stuck very often and depressed even, right? Oh, nothing's working, right? I'm doing the same thing over and over again, nothing's working. But stepping back, allowing myself to see something new
Yes.
when there's a lack of that momentum, when there's a, and maybe I don't know, I don't have a coach like you who could work, through the process to build that momentum up. I also find, yeah, taking a break, taking a step back, yeah, also helps.
I'm laughing because I walked into a coaching call with my coach. I think it was last week, and by the time this airs, it will be 2024. Hopefully, we will have all set our goals, be reviewing them every week, like doing all the things we're supposed to do. But at the time of this recording, it's near the end of December, and I am having a lot of angst about setting my 2024 goals. So I walked into the coaching call, and it's a group, so there's 15 or 20 of us, and I'm like prepared to ugly cry because I'm pretty sure that he's going to say, why can't you set your goals? I don't know what my problem is. And we're going to, dig out some deep seated mindset issue from when I was a child and I've regressed and don't even remember it.
Wow.
Like I'm convinced that's what we're walking into. And
Yeah,
so,
the
um,
spiraling. Yeah.
yeah. And so I'm like, he's like, all right, Jennifer, what's your question? And I said, so I'm trying to sit down and set my 24 goals. And I just can't. Like every time I'm trying to push through, but I get emotional and I don't know what my problem is. And I've tried journaling and I've reviewed some old notes from some mindset stuff. And like I can't figure it out. And he thought for a minute and he's like, when's the last time you had a vacation? And I'm like, I don't know.
Oh, no.
I can't remember. And he's like, okay. And I said, I mean, I think, yeah, I don't know. And he's like, so that's your problem. And he's like, you need to go away for like 4 or 5 days and like do nothing. Like, don't do anything for the business. He said, what about reading? When's the last time you read a book like for fun? And I'm like, well, like I read business books. He's like, no, stop. He's like, not business, not personal development, not business books, not sales books, like a fiction book. And I'm like, oh, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe. And he's like, yeah, you need to, like, you're pouring from an empty cup and you can't do that. And I said, okay, but like 4 or 5 days is a really long time. I kid you not. Can I just do it in like one or two? And he's like, Jennifer, like that's your problem. You're pushing so hard. And he said, that's admirable and it will serve you well, but no, like 4 to 5 days, unplug, don't work, take some books with you, take your favorite fuzzy blanket. Like, I don't think he said that, but that's so I'm like, okay. And so I found a cabin in the woods and I told my husband he wasn't invited and explained that you go off on your hunting trips or your shooting
Commitment.
trips with your friends and you don't invite me and it's okay. I don't want to go. I'm doing this for me. And he's like, I get it. Go do what you need to do. And so I'm taking 5 days at a cabin in the woods and I already have my books picked out. I already have my favorite cookies in a pile. Like I'm taking all, like I'm singing a few of my favorite things in my
Yeah.
mind,
Yeah, yeah.
to just get away and recharge and come out the other side probably with a million ideas and having zero issues setting goals. And so it's things like that that like as I'm coaching my clients, I'm realizing that burnout is a very, very real thing in the entrepreneurial world. And because of the way that I'm wired, I can hide that really well, even for myself. And so that's the only job I have going into this is to journal and spot the things that I should have picked up on along the way that said, hey, Jennifer, you're nearing burnout. So that I can keep it from happening again. I would like to not repeat this.
Jennifer, I forget what step we were on. Was it 7, 8,
I
9
think
now?
it was
Or
like
8, 9?
4, 5, and 6. And then
About
step
6. Yeah.
7 is sales, which is my jam. I love sales. I wrote a book on sales. It hit the bestseller list. And so we talk about sales fundamentals and objection handling and how to control the sale, how to make sure you're pushing for that next step, getting a firm yes or a firm no, like all of the things. How do you prove your value of your messaging? And so you're starting to see the things kind of come together. It's a whole system. Um, and so that's the sales module. And then 8 is around
Oh,
content. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry.
Sorry, sales. Let's talk about sales.
Regarding the book, I'm
Yeah.
curious for folks that you've mentored, or maybe I don't know if you typically meet your readers, but I'm curious what if you know what it is, but what the takeaway, what some folks have taken away from the book, or impact.
Yeah, so the impact of the book is that there was a subtle mindset shift when people read the book where, okay, I know how to sell managed services, because usually there's a whole lot of muscle memory around managed services. My book is specifically around selling managed security. And so the shift was like, okay, while it's different, there are a lot of fundamentals that are exactly the same. The fundamentals of listening and asking open-ended questions, and
Mm,
value is always in the eye of the prospect. Like, don't tell why you think it's the greatest thing ever. Value needs to be set in the world of the prospect. And so those are the fundamentals that never change. It's just a little bit more difficult to apply those in a cybersecurity world when you're leading with cyber, maybe when you're doing vCISO as a service. And so those are the kind of moments that people are saying, you know what, while a solid third or more of the book was about cybersecurity, really 2/3 of it was just general sales, great sales 101 and 201 type of things. And it's a good reminder. It's just a good refresher. Most of the people in our industry are not working 2 and 3 sales calls a day.
mhm.
At best, they're usually working, 2 or 3 a month. And
Oh,
so those skills get rusty. Like, you have to knock the rust off. And that's a lot of what people are getting from the book is like, I used to do that. I forgot to do it. I haven't done it for the last 6 months. I'm going to start doing it again. And so that's really a lot of the aha moments is reminders of things you used to do, or, oh yeah, someone else told me that was important. I'm not doing that. Maybe I should learn how to do that in my own sales calls. And so that's the aha moments from the book.
you mentioned asking open-ended questions. I'm curious, and this might be an unfair question, but yeah, could you give us some examples of what these open-ended questions might be, when you would use them, and what your objective is in asking that question?
Yeah. Oh, great. I love that. Okay, so I'll try to remember all those questions, but you
Oh
you
yeah,
kick
you
it
don't have to
off.
give me all of them, but
Um,
yeah. We have to
so
read your
I
book to get all of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's okay though. So I really like, what would it look like if, or how would it impact your business if? And so let's just say there's what would it look like for your business if you got hit with a ransomware attack and you were down dead in the water for 3 weeks and you couldn't pay your team? That's a what would it how would your clients act if during that ransomware attack some of your clients' data leaked and now it's available to the world? Well, how would it impact your sales quotas and your pipeline management if you couldn't even access those tools for 3 weeks? You couldn't respond to proposals. You couldn't. So those are very open-ended questions that take the cybersecurity threat from, like, in theory, well, in theory, I could get hit by a ransomware attack, but that doesn't mean anything to me, the business owner, if I've never been through it. Because we humans are like, well, I'd figure it out. I'm resilient. Well, okay, yes, you're resilient, but figuring it out is a whole lot worse than you think. And your listeners know that, but your
Mhm.
listeners' prospects do
Yep.
not know that. And so that's really this concept of discovery is when you ask the questions, you ask that. And the purpose of your discovery questions, I think that was your last question, was
Mhm.
the purpose of discovery is to help the prospect discover how underserved and at risk they are. So you're asking questions, like if you picture your prospect with like a blindfold on, you're asking questions that will help the prospect go, oh, I had never seen that before. And guess what? If you're helping them see something that they never saw before, that makes you a thought leader. That makes you
Mhm.
a difference maker in the sales process. That makes you valuable. It makes the prospect lean in instead of getting back on their heels and going, I don't want to buy from you. I want to argue with you instead. They're like, oh, you've added value to my world. How else could you help me? Maybe you're really good at this cybersecurity thing that I didn't even really understand, and you just helped me understand it, and you helped underscore how risky my current behavior is, or why I should be doing a risk assessment every month, or why I should be doing ongoing vulnerability assessments, that type of thing. And now there is at least an interest on the part of the prospect. So that's what you're trying to accomplish in discovery.
Wow. So that was step 7. And what about 8?
Yeah, 8 is content. Uh, I want MSPs to have content, but if you notice, it comes a long way after lead generation, because there's nothing wrong with having blogs and posting to social media. And like I have a whole video strategy that I teach my clients, but I need them to understand that that is really branding and awareness, which is important. I mean, it's part of the framework. It's important, but it isn't the same as lead generation. It is a supplement to lead generation. You don't want a completely vacant canvas on your website when a prospect hears about you. They're going to search your name or your company name or go to your website. And so you don't want it to be like this abandoned canvas. But at the same time, you need to not spend all of your time creating content and expecting that to be a lead generation vehicle. It's
Hmm.
not. It supports, it undergirds the lead generation vehicle.
And last but not least, 9.
Last but not least is the machine. It is pulling, I call it the transformation machine. It's pulling all of those pieces together. And it's the concept inside of Traction and EOS. Gino Wickman talks about the fact that if you're a founder and you're on a desert island or a tropical island, and you want a one-page report that says, how is my business doing? Are we growing? Are we heading in the right direction? Is there an oncoming train that we need to be aware of? The marketing machine is simply a one-page, almost think of it like an executive summary, probably similar to what you do for your clients, that says, here's how your marketing is performing. Here's what's trending in the right direction. Here's what's trending in the wrong direction. Here's an area of potential optimization. And so it's a dashboard plus a series of questions to ask every single month to make sure that you're always getting just a little bit better.
Hmm. Interesting. Gosh, Jennifer, I wish I had another hour with you. Um, we're running out of time, so I'm just gonna cheat and 180 right here
Yeah,
and
for
just
sure.
ask you, um, throughout your career, what would you say is one of your most important career learnings? And maybe let me take a step back. It doesn't even have to be career. What's one of the most important things that you've learned through your journey?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna say it this way. I tell my clients all the time to step into their greatness. Step into your greatness. And I think we all have greatness inside of us, whether that is a vision for an organization that pays you very, very well, or a vision of a company that supports hundreds or thousands of organizations and takes care of their infrastructure or their cybersecurity. Whatever that glimmer is your greatness, and it's almost like it's there waiting, I don't know, like your
Yeah.
workout clothes, piled on the floor next to the bed, and until you get out of bed and jump into those workout clothes, nothing's going to happen, right? Like they're waiting for you. And so I tell my clients to step into that greatness, to exhibit who you are, to inhabit who you are, and be you, because there's only one you in the world. And so if you've been given a passion and a drive, ambition to build your company, Jeremy, same with you. Like you've pivoted, you've iterated, you've read the market, you're adjusting your messaging, you've got a great solution, and you're living that. Like you're living the I was put on the earth at this moment to do this thing. Why not do it with excellence? Like knock everybody's socks off and do it with excellence. And so that's a lesson that I learned, and am still learning as as I grow and evolve and change. But that's a huge lesson, is just step into your greatness.
At the risk of going over time, what was there something that happened that taught you that lesson? Did you not always live by that before, or was there something that made you feel that way now?
Yeah, so
Um,
this is I don't ever remember a time that I didn't preach that. But I would say in the last 6 months or so, I've hit another level of that truth in my own life. And I'm shifting from, I've been a business owner now for 3 years. Prior to that, I was an employee, and I was a fantastic employee. Like you talk to anybody that I worked with, and I was a great employee. And what I've realized though in the last few months is that I was borrowing the confidence of my bosses. And so I would execute with confidence, I'd execute quickly. And it was
mhm.
because the CEO or my manager was kind of the governor, if you will. Like he or she would be able to put a throttle on me and say, I think that's a good idea. Strangely enough, they rarely had to do that because I was very good at what I did. But there was a big shift for me going from employee and borrowing the confidence that someone else had in Jennifer. And now I'm a business owner, and there's no CEO. Like I am the CEO. Like, oh, I've got to look in the mirror and find that confidence. And that was a hard fought battle. And so it wasn't that I was less than great before. Like I was very good at what I did. I was one of the best. But it's been in the last 6 months that I've said, no, like I'm standing in my own confidence. I'm not executing because I know my manager will dial me back if I need to. I'm good. Like I've got that in myself. And so it's a new level. It's a new level for me.
Wow. Thank you for sharing, your knowledge and wisdom and stories with us today. Jennifer, the last question here is, who should reach out to you, and what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so if you are an MSP that's around $1 million in annual revenue, up to about 5 million in revenue, and you're looking for that marketing system, you're looking for a framework to put in place to get your leads flowing, to have a sales system that converts those opportunities to new MRR, that's who I work with all day long. So if that's you, you definitely should reach out to me. Best way is on my website, mspsalesrevolution.com. I will tell you what most people do is download a few of my resources, get to know how I teach, what kind of things that I do, how I approach this whole puzzle of marketing and sales. And then if you're interested in reaching out and booking that strategy session, there is information on my site as well.
Awesome. And final plug for us. Hey, folks, if you're an MSP owner or a sales marketing professional, if you're looking to direct your revenue, if you're looking to work on your top of funnel to convert website traffic to sales calls, if you're looking to help close bottom of funnel deals with risk assessments, or if you're looking to expedite and save labor and time running risk assessments during onboarding or QBRs, you can reach out to us, telivy.com, telivy.com, or if you know somebody who could benefit from automated risk assessments, you can refer them, and when your referral becomes a Telivy partner, you receive a $500 referral bonus. Jennifer, thank you so much for speaking with us today. It's been a pleasure, and everybody, we'll see you all next time. Thank you.